So what would happen if you bet on the favourites in every single horse race over the course of a year? Sounds like a disaster waiting to happen, especially when you realise that there was absolutely no skill or selection process used at all. This is exactly what I have just done. And if you're interested in learning the results and how you can turn them profitable, just watch the rest of this video. So yes, it's true. I went in and blindly bet the favourite on every single horse race over the course of the year. Now, I can't exclude that I missed some of them, but it'll be a very, very small percentage. But I tried to bet on every single race over the course of every single day over the course of a year. And the methodology was that simple. I didn't use any skill or judgment whatsoever, didn't look at any tips or try and make any particular judgment. I just bet on the favourite and left it at that. Now, for those of you who know me and follow my videos, you will know that I bet millions a year on many different types of sports, especially on horse racing. So this is something that doesn't feel uncomfortable to me. However, it may feel uncomfortable to you, which is why for this experiment, what I did was I actually backed to a set profit target, and the bet that I placed would change according to the odds. So if the odds were very short, I would place a bigger bet, but if the odds are very long, I would place a smaller bet, because what I was trying to do is get a £1 profit on each individual race. And the reason for using a £1 profit, which isn't very much, was just so that if anybody tries to replicate me, you don't get yourself into serious trouble. I don't want to encourage that. Use small stakes while you're messing around. But the interesting thing about using a profit target, I'll bring up a little graph that will basically show you how my stake varies according to the odds that I see on the betting exchange, is that you equalize your profit with the potential risk. And that's why I vary my stake according to what profit I want to get out of that particular favourite. And, you know, it's difficult to explain quickly and succinctly, but basically that's the net effect, is you equalise your risk with your potential payoff. So the image that you can see up here is basically telling you the sort of stakes that I would use according to the odds of that particular favourite. Now, as I've just said, I was using a betting exchange as well. If you go into a bookmaker or you go on course or to a sports book, you will lose an incredible amount of money. And that is because when you use a bookmaker or a sports book, they adjust their prices so that you definitely lose over the long term. You will lose money if you attempt this with a bookmaker. But on a betting exchange, you get absolutely amazing odds, typically the best you will get in the entire industry. And that will be one of the keys to being able to get a profitable strategy. The other thing that I did was that the bets were placed at post time. So if you actually look at a horse race, post time is the advertised time that the race is due to start, but the horses are never fully ready at post time. It's always going to be a minute or two afterwards. But I know by placing them at post time that I get the best available odds and the smallest spreads and other factors. That is the best time to place this particular type of bet. So I bet to a fixed profit target. I used a betting exchange, and I bet at post time. That was when the bets went into the market, not several hours before, right at the critical point within the market. And the great thing about betting exchanges is you can use software like BetAngel to do it for you. So in fact, I didn't place any bets, but I did. All I did was I automated it, because obviously I'm going to be busy on the markets doing other things. I really want the software to go in and do this for me because I want to be focused on other things and be using more money elsewhere on different strategies. So yeah, it was automated. And if you want to automate it too, you can use software like BetAngel to perform these sort of experiments. So the big question is, how did it do? So pursuing this particular strategy, how did it do? What happened if we just went in blindly and backed every favourite over the course of a year? And behind me is the answer. You've actually got a graph here of the results of this particular strategy. Now, I didn't start this in January and finish it in December. I just came up with the idea probably maybe just over a year ago. And what I did was I decided to do it for small stakes so that other people could replicate it. I don't want to encourage irresponsible gambling and all of those things. So I backed to a profit of £1 and just saw how we got on. And this graph is the result of exactly how we got on. Now, I actually do bet on horse racing and pretty much every single horse race. And I bet millions a year. I know it sounds, ridiculous, but it's true. But for this experiment, we kept it down to low levels so that you could replicate it if you want to give it a try. And what you can see over the course of the year is we accidentally created a profitable strategy. I know that sounds bizarre because we're doing it completely at random. But you can see that from the start of this particular strategy, Anything above the middle line is basically when the strategy is in profit. Anything below the line is when the strategy is not in profit. And you can see some interesting moments within this particular graph as well. There was one particular period at the start of the year where it plunged negative. It was profitable for ages, and then suddenly it just sort of sunk like a stone. But then, of course, it came roaring back and turned itself into profit. And there were a couple of occasions when the strategy was underwater over the course of this particular year. But generally, it always seemed to recover. So yeah, remarkably, just going into a market, looking on the Betfair exchange, which is the betting exchange that we used, looking at the top of that list and then backing that favourite to a profit of £1 actually was profitable over the course of the year. But I will insert a caveat here, because the graph that you can see here actually excludes commission. If you bet with a bookmaker, they adjust their prices so that you're guaranteed to lose over the long term. You just simply cannot win. Now, on a betting exchange, you don't have that problem. With a bookmaker, if you win, they lose, and therefore your account's going to be limited and restricted. But on a betting exchange, you can win and you will not be restricted. But one of the way that they make money is they don't give you weird prices and close your account and restrict you. They will take a commission on your winning bets. So the graph that you can see here is actually the profit before commission. And if we actually take commission off, it actually turns a little bit negative. So we backed the favourite in every single race, and it was profitable before commission, but after commission it was slightly negative, but actually not by much. When we look at the amount of money that we would have lost taking commission off, it's still very, very small. And as a percentage of the turnover that we actually committed to the market, it's absolutely tiny. So the net upshot of this is, even if you went into the market and you backed the favourite at random, but you backed it at post time and you backed it to a set profits target, then you really wouldn't have lost much money. You would have made money before commission, you would have lost a little bit as a percentage after commission. But of course that brings on the big question, which is, how do you get this particular system profitable? So when we look at that graph, this is telling us a really key core fundamental point that I've known for many, many years. And that is that as long as you structure your staking to equalize the level of risk that you're taking on any individual market, generally speaking, the worst that you can do at any one particular moment in time is break even less commission. If you bet at random and you structure your staking correctly, that is the worst payoff that you will get. You will obviously have to pay commission, and that drags down your overall results, what we would call slippage. But at a core level, as long as you don't do anything stupid, you'll more or less break even. So your mission,
should you choose to accept it,
is to overcome that. You need to tweak things slightly in your favor so that you get a more favorable result. Do you pick better races? Do you pick better selections? Certain types of markets, certain types of days, certain types of odds, all of those sort of things will help you just sort of tip things a little bit in your favor. And one of the things that I like showing about demonstrating this particular concept is I have a thing called a Galton board. It demonstrates a random distribution, and when you look at a random distribution, it shows the same thing. It shows that your positives and negatives roughly equal out, and all you need to do is tip that board slightly in one direction, and then that will be enough to turn the entire strategy that you're pursuing profitable. It's the same thing that I've done for many years. Every time I go into a market and I look at something, I bet or trade on it randomly, and then I start working on the parameters to tweak it so that I can actually turn it profitable. That's basically what I do every day, every month, every year for the last, over 20 years now. So yeah, when we're looking at the way that the market has delivered those results to us, that's what it's telling us again. And what we have to do then is to try and figure out a way of actually tipping that slightly in our favor. So one of the objections I hear to telling people about this is they say, I don't know anything about any particular sport or whatever. But the interesting thing about betting exchanges is that's not absolutely necessarily a prerequisite. If you know something about a particular sport and you've got a little angle there, you may be able to get a slightly better price or make slightly better selections that will allow you to turn it profitable. But the interesting thing is betting exchanges offer you other ways of being able to turn this to your advantage. So let me talk you through a couple of simple things on a betting exchange that will allow you to turn the odds in your favor, to turn that line rather than slightly negative after commission to slightly positive. So if you bet with a traditional bookmaker, you would basically go in, you'd see what the best available back price was, and then you would place your order into the market. So if I place a back order at 276 for £5.60, you can see it returns about £10. And you'll notice that I didn't do my stake of £1. That would be 56p, but you can see that I can't enter 56p in here because there's a minimum stake on Betfair. But if you use software like BetAngel, you can use 56p. So how would we improve this position within the market? Well, you can always ask for better odds, because if you increase the odds at which you're asking for, which is what I'm doing here, then you can see we get a bigger return for the same stake. And it may seem a bit odd because we're backing here at let's choose something that's up here. Let's choose 284 here. We're backing at 284, which isn't available at the current back price. But when we actually put it in the exchange, what actually happens is the bet gets placed in the market and it sits over at 284 until somebody takes it. So we're going to improve the price at which we can get within the market, only by a little bit, but it will sit there and wait for somebody else to take that particular order. It's a great way of improving the price that you can actually get on the exchange. And it's even easier to do if you're using a piece of software. So if you choose to use a piece of software, then you're getting really serious. And there are many advantages. It's a little bit more complex and involves a bit of effort and skill. But you can see all of the prices that are available, all of the odds that are available, how much money is there. And it's just a click away. Whatever you want to do, you can just press a button and it will automatically place a bet in the market for you. But things improve even further if you start to use automation, because that gives you even more flexibility. If you choose to go down the automated route, you have lots of options. That it's literally infinite what you can do. You can see here, even simple options like placing a bet at the fixed price, best market price, second, third, reverse market price, above, below. There are just so many options. You can really get creative in terms of improving the price that you're likely to get when you back the favorite. So, of course, I can hear people saying, well, surely that's not going to make any difference. That's going to make negligent, and it doesn't, blah, 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 objection. But what I did was I went back into my spreadsheet, got all of the data from each individual bet, and I improved the price by one tick. By one tick, what we're talking about on a betting exchange is the next odds increment. So if I was backing at 4, I just adjusted it to 4.1. If I was backing at odds of 3, it would be 305, or 2 would be 202. 1.7, I'd back at 1.8. I would actually just get an extra one tick of better odds, and that the effect was mercurial. Basically, what happened was that it actually turned the entire strategy positive. We ended up in the situation where just by asking for a slightly better price, we actually managed to get the strategy positive over the course of the year. Very simple refinement, something that would have worked incredibly well. So yeah, all of these little things do really add up. So quite remarkably, the result of going into every single horse race and backing the favourite actually ended up with us making a small profit before commission. After commission, we made a small loss, but we were able to look at ways that we could overcome that and actually turn the whole thing profitable. And the only thing that we did that could be considered moderately special was we didn't use any selection process or certain types of odds and stuff like that. We just used a betting exchange where we knew we'd get really good odds. We backed to a target profit, and we just backed the favourite. And of course, we did that automatically using BetAngel. If you did this with a traditional bookmaker, what would be your chance of achieving the same results?
Zero.
And that is because it's all stacked against you. If you win, they lose, and if you lose, they win. Whereas on a betting exchange, obviously it all balances it out. That makes the market hyper efficient, and that means that little barrier that you need to overcome to become profitable is actually really, really thin. And using a bit of intelligence and knowledge will actually get you over that barrier. Of course, you could improve the type of selections, the races, various other factors within here to make this much more favorable. But what I've tried to show you in this video here is actually that step to getting to profitability is much smaller than you would think.